Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 22 of The Agency Way, a weekly blab series focused on helping marketers learn more from subject matter experts within a marketing agency and beyond. Today, I'm really excited to have Jill Maylander joining us. Jill has been with Room 214 for
over 4.5 years.
oh my gosh. Okay. So that's pretty good for agency life, right? So she's an account supervisor at Room 214, does a lot of social media work. I know one of your larger clients that you work consistently on is Sanrio, Hello Kitty.
Yep.
Right. And so, gosh, anything and everything you want to know about Hello Kitty, Jill's your girl. That's just awesome. Anyway, Jill, really excited for you to be here today. This is your first time, I think, on a blab with me. And so today we're going to be talking about Snapchat for brands. And that is also exciting. And then also my co-host, Erica Stutzman, who joins. And it's funny because I want to say Erica's to my right, but then I think
it all switches around.
It all switches around. Yeah. You never know. So you could be beneath me and looking up. We could do the Brady Bunch thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks everybody for joining. And I'm just going to go ahead and pop right into this. Because like I said, I got questions. I got them prepped. First of all, I know that just from my own experience with Snapchat and even from looking over my 16-year-old shoulder, I get why Snapchat, right? I mean, there's texting and then there's Snapchat. But let's just start by asking, how should brands be approaching Snapchat?
I think, first of all, definitely knowing the audience of Snapchat. So if you're a brand that maybe provides something to people that are much older and not likely to be on Snapchat, like let's say you're Cialis or something like that, I don't think that would be entirely appropriate for Snapchat. But if you do have an audience that is within the 13 to 24, and the demographics are always shifting on who's using it, but I think it's a great place to start. And a lot of times I feel brands will be very scared to think about Snapchat, and they want to have chats upon chats and maybe put together several content buckets and the things that they should be thinking about. Then they back away, and then they're like, okay, let's go for it. And then they back away because it's scary. It's a hard, a kind of unknown, even though it's, like you said, Jason, been around for 4 years. It still is very unknown at this point. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing is just to not be scared. It's content that goes away within 24 hours, or you can delete it immediately if you feel like it wasn't your best content out there. But it's also important to approach it from a very real place of not being like, this is our glossy, put together, airbrushed look. Nothing ever goes wrong on Snapchat. So perfect. That's part of the beauty of Snapchat, is that it is real and people can see what brands are truly like and what it really is behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, with that in mind, and I think you kind of touched on this a little bit, but should brands plan their Snapchat content, or should it be more real time? What's your thought on that?
I actually think both. It's definitely good to think about both categories. I think you have to have plan for the time that maybe something real time doesn't present itself. So maybe there's not an event going on, or there isn't something that just happened to be funny that happened that day at the brand's office. So being able to have something to fill in between those times. And then also the great thing about planning is that it helps you tell a more cohesive story. So if your approach is that you do want to have a story behind what you're saying, you definitely want to have that planned out, and then you go in with somewhat of a leg up on what you're about to shoot. But there are times where things are just happen to be funny. And like the other day for my own personal brand, I was out going to get lunch, and here comes a guy on a motorcycle wearing a Superman costume. Definitely not planned. I did not know he was going to be there, but it was a great moment to Snapchat and just be like, this is so strange. And I got to capture it and share it with everybody. And so being flexible is definitely the way to go.
And so on that note too, I mean, would you say, just in terms of brands that are trying to figure out, obviously in our world, we do a lot of planning for content that's specific for brands. So both in terms of, sales content, but also social media content, editorial content calendars. What types of content are going to be best? I know it's a pretty general question, but the type of content that's going to work best on Snapchat is what?
Well, the great thing about planning Snapchat content is that you can take a lot of what you know about other platforms. So you know generally what your fans are interested in seeing. They really want to see what the new spring collection is going to be like coming out if you're a fashion brand. So you can still talk about those same subjects, but you have to take them and reinvent them to make them fresh and new. Because if it's just the exact same content across all your channels, well, then fans will be like, well, why am I here? I'm also on Instagram, so I'm just going to follow you there and not even bother seeing what you have on Snapchat. So trying to just, let's say, with Instagram, you have a really glossy, beautiful product laydown, and it's like, oh, we're ready for festival season coming up. Here's great outfits to wear. Well, then on Snapchat, take the fans behind the photo shoot and show them what it's like to produce that photo and what a day in the life of a photographer or a model is like for that brand.
That's interesting. So it's almost kind of behind the scenes type content.
Yeah, that's one of the buckets that does really well.
Good to know. And then would you say, is it specifically the community manager that you would see coming up with Snapchat content based on what you've shared, what's working across other social networks?
I think the majority of it falls on them. But of course, the more people that you can bring into a brainstorm or on your team to just help think of things maybe a little bit differently than you might think, more brains is always the way to go, in my opinion. But yeah, I would say it's majority of the community managers, and they can do some planning of, okay, we want to talk about our new products that are coming out this week. So like Taco Bell will do, then they'll plan out little skits that they play of like, who stole my crunchy burrito? And so then they go through the office and tell these little fake stories and figure out who solved the mystery. And then at the end, it's like, now here's the new crunchy burrito, or whatever the actual new product may be.
Interesting. And so when you think about that kind of content on Snapchat, what would you say, like, how does it tie into a brand's entire social presence? Is that workable?
I believe it is. I think you have to really be strategic about how you do it. You don't want to just, to the same point that I made earlier of saying, okay, here's what we're posting on Sphero or Sphero, Snapchat. So we're going to take it and put it on Instagram and put it on YouTube. And it's just the same content on all platforms. Well, then that doesn't give fans a reason to follow you across different platforms. But if you are tight on content, definitely save your snaps and give it a little bit of time, like a month, and then you could put some of it back on some of your other channels. Or another way would be to tell a story across the channels. So maybe your Twitter starts out on, or your story starts out on Twitter, and you give the premise and says, okay, now follow us over to Facebook to see the next piece of this story. And so on until you wind up on Snapchat. And that's where people find out what the ending of the story is.
Cool. And then what would you say? Who's really killing it on Snapchat right now? You mentioned Sphero. Are you getting ahead of me?
That was a little bit getting ahead. I love their content. I think they do a great job. They do a really good job of personalizing their robots and bringing them into the story as if almost the robots telling the story themselves. And like the other day, they did a office tour. So it was behind the scenes, but the whole tour was given by one of the Sphero robots. Oh, and it's just, it was very cool. You get to see the product. You get to see what it's like in an office that usually everybody doesn't get to go in and get a view of. And then they would add in little humor, like the Sphero ball comes out of the bathroom and it has toilet paper stuck to it, or just little things that were just very clever and not obviously funny, but I found very, very clever.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, it's kind of like Maya here, right? She's got this spider that lives next to her desk that she's now, I don't know, built some sort of paper cave around and kind of, snapping the daily adventures of this spider. And
Exactly. And that's the beauty with Snapchat, is that it doesn't have to be some huge thought up content story that it's going to take, all these people to produce, and it's going to take a lot of planning, and everything has to be right in a row. And I mean, it can be something as simple as a spider that lives in your windowsill, and you make up a story about it and share that. And it's silly and fun.
Mm-hmm. And I think, to that is kind of to your point about brands, why they would have fear.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I mean, yeah, with social media, things have changed over the years, but still, you're coming from a mindset of, okay, how do we plan this? How do we move in a way that's strategic? Ultimately, what is the outcome that we wish to achieve from doing this kind of activity?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a huge ongoing conversation, right? So if we're saying, well, we're really humanizing the brand, we're really showing, the people behind the brand. Those are definitely things we would be advocates for all day long. But we know also that people are actually like making sales as a result of Snapchat too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know how much you've dug into this, Jill, or if you have any opinions on that. I mean, Snapchat from a direct sales perspective, or how that's actually driving business. Um, I don't know. Do you?
I do have some insight. I think, of course, primarily, in my opinion, social media is just there for the brand loyalty and really helping people to get an extra love of the brand in there, because they know so much more about it, and not just a place where I happen to go and they happen to have my size of clothes. It shows that there's so much more to the story. But with Snapchat, you can do things, and this is things that you can do across all the channels, is you can put out a code, like a discount code, and say, in the next 24 hours, use this code when you check out at Everlane, is another great brand for an example. And then that will drive people to their website to want to buy something because they want to use the code. And it's just as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Then it can also be a lot of like teasers of saying, these are the new shoes that are coming, or this is what's going to be in stores tomorrow. So it's building up that hype and letting people get a preview, and then they'll be excited and go to the stores and want to buy whatever it was that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So we have a question here.
Yeah.
Snapchat versus Meerkat versus Facebook Live, and all the different sort of new formats that everybody's enjoying so much and talking about so much. Which should brands choose for themselves, do you think?
I think out of especially those three, the one that I would dig into the most is Snapchat, just because it can cover all the things that Meerkat and Facebook Live can do in a sense, but it can continue on. It doesn't have to be just based on a live event, which I think Meerkat and Facebook Live are more for. I mean, there's ways to be creative and use all of these in, everyday ways, but I love Snapchat just because you can stream a live event. You can go all around the party, interview people, all those kinds of things. But then, the next day, well, then you still have other types of content that you can put on Snapchat. So you can do pictures, or just using emojis as somebody's face, or just all sorts of things. I just feel like it's a much more versatile tool. So if somebody was wondering where to start, I would say Snapchat.
Mm-hmm. I think you can actually learn a lot from doing things on Snapchat that then can be taken over and applied in other areas. I think also, that's just my opinion, I think that you really have to be able to look at where is your existing audience, or, the growth, the size of the audience. So for example, I mean, like even a client you work with, like Hello Kitty, Jill, I mean, they've got, do you tell me, it's like over 13 million Facebook fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about the opportunity for, maybe Hello Kitty's not the greatest example because they could be doing tons on Snapchat too. But when you think about the opportunity for what they could be doing with live streaming with an audience that is that big, and with Facebook right now anyway, essentially rewarding people who are live stream, they're opening it up to the broader audience, as opposed to, the 1% of the audience that just sees a normal post.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, I think to in part to answer the question is you definitely have to look at the audience that you've already established and decide, if I'm going to put a lot of eggs into the live streaming basket on Facebook, does that make sense for me? Because I've already got a pretty large and established audience there.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. And when thinking about that answer that was asked, or that question that was asked, it is definitely thinking just straightforward logistics. Here's the channel that I would tend to go with more. But exactly, it's why abandon 13 million fans and try and start a Snapchat where it might only have 200 right now because it's brand new. And then you're talking to such a small audience when you could have hit so many people for something. So that's also a great time to think about how can you maybe incorporate both, but also have what each platform is doing do something different. So it's not the Facebook Live person is filming and you have your Snapchat camera right next to that same person and you're both seeing the same view. Then that's not fun and diverse for anybody.
Yeah. We've got another question. This is a good one. When should you use stories versus just a one-off snap, like a quick snap versus building a story?
That is a very good question. Sometimes there's just things that can't be said in a quick snap. If you're wanting to tell a story, or like General Electric will do a great job of talking about whatever's their new product that they have coming out. And a lot of times you just can't get the grandeur of the whole project in one snap. And it has to be, kind of, they give a backstory about like, oh, this gigantic fan or something. I can't remember what the last product that I saw them talking about on there. But
no.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it's like you give it a background, then show it being rolled out, and then show how it's used. And, you need a series of posts to talk about it. But then for one-off snaps, that's a great use of just like something that maybe just happened to pop up real time that you can quick snap, take advantage of it, and it's a funny little moment for somebody to enjoy.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
How does one? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Erica. Go ahead.
Well, my question is, how would a brand? So let's say a brand has a great Facebook presence and they've got a lot of Twitter followers, but it's not modern enough for them, and Snapchat is a very easy way for them to kind of maybe capture their culture. How do they build that audience?
So a lot of cross promotion of, first of all, just saying, hey, we're on Snapchat, and you use a code that has a little ghost on it, but it's unique just to your brand. So it's like a QR code. And so you can post that on your social channels and say, hey, snap this code and come follow us. And then another great way, I think, is to show a little bit of what you're putting on Snapchat on your other channels. So it's like a teaser of, if you enjoy this kind of content, come follow us on Snapchat to see much more of it. And basically telling fans, you're not going to see this on Twitter or Facebook. We're only talking about this on Snapchat. So if you care about that, come there.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
So Jill, I know for us, doing social media agency work all the time, we're very focused on things like influencer marketing, and we're always looking at different platforms by which you can find influencers, right? Because if you're trying to, even if you're a large brand, oftentimes you're trying to extend your audience, amplify your story, your message, whatever the case may be. And so there's a great deal of strategy around first identifying influencers, then doing some level of outreach to them, and really trying to get them as advocates and on board what you're about. So when you look at Snapchat, it's kind of like, how do you do that? And, how do you even find influencers to start, let alone the whole separate conversation on outreach? You got any tips for that, or tools or anything?
Yeah. So one of the first ways that I go about it a lot is I follow a lot of brands on Snapchat just to see what they're doing and get inspiration on content. And a lot of times they'll give a shout out to an influencer, or they'll have influencer takeovers. So that's a great way to find some of the higher tier influencers. But there is also a tool called Ghost Codes, which, Jason, you actually found for me. Thank you again for that. And it is a really great tool of, It just organizes what kind of Snapchatters, what the content the Snapchatters are doing. So there's some that are like a celebrity category or an artist category or marketing. And you can go through there and you can read bios and say, oh yeah, this person sounds interesting, I want to follow them. And in turn, you can also put your own Snapchat code on Ghost Codes. So either from a personal standpoint or from a brand standpoint, you can load that on there. And then when people are skimming through looking for new people to follow, they'll run across your brand and they'll be like, oh, great, I want to download that. I just loaded my profile last night and I already had one new follower, but just somebody random that I don't know. And that's how they found me.
Cool. Ghost Codes.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. The rumor is that that is an agency that actually came up with that app. And if anybody follows Joel Comm or pays attention to Ghost Codes at all, people are expecting that agency to probably not have to be an agency anymore because they're going to make so much money off of Snapchat buying them or their app, basically, that it's really interesting. There's a lot of data inside of Snapchat and that's a whole other conversation. Well, Jill, I know we're starting to approach our time here, but I feel like the range of people that I've talked to, there are people who really know Snapchat to the point where they're like spending hours per day responding to everybody on Snapchat. And it's crazy. And it almost like gives me an ulcer just thinking about it. And then there are people that are like real, I would say hardcore, marketing professionals, digital and social, that are still just like, I don't have a clue about this thing. And I know it's something we should be paying attention, but what the hell? So all that to say, what would you recommend in terms of resources for just learning more about Snapchat?
Oh, that is a good question. Always just Googling, that is a great place to start with, just how to use Snapchat. Mm-hmm. And there's just like Adweek and Fast Company and TechCrunch. They post things about Snapchat all the time. So not only is that a great place to start and see how to use it, but then also to stay up with, Snapchat just added stickers. So instead of just adding emojis to pictures, now you can also add stickers, and just getting those sorts of insights and updates. Another great resource would be to contact Room 214. Nice. And we can definitely help with a lot of that. My Twitter or Snapchat. Oh my gosh, that was a really hard one to get out. And that's my topic. I can't believe that. My handle is just Jill Maylander, all one word. And so you can hit me up and ask me questions. I'd be happy to give people some tips and tricks.
Cool. And training wise too, I know there's some individuals out there that will offer like video tutorials and just kind of individual training as well.
Yeah, actually, Kazuki just pointed out that he learned about it on YouTube from YouTube videos. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
My 12-year-old learns everything from YouTube. It's kind of scary.
It is.
Yes, we have one more question. Is there such a thing as a Snapchat directory besides the Ghost Codes that we mentioned earlier?
Not that I have come across, but that is a really great question and something that I will look into.
Yeah. And I think that is a great question, because that does get straight into influencers, categories. How do you segment subject matter in a meaningful way that you can actually learn something, that you can reach out to people. And so, in terms of Snapchat marketing, I'm highly interested in the whole directory conversation. And I know that's something that we will continue to pursue. So, all right,
definitely.
Jill, to close us out, I guess just key takeaways, what would you say? Lay down some wisdom.
All right. Be yourself. Just be real. Don't try to be something that you're not, that doesn't naturally come. Be yourself and be your brand. Snapchat has so many tools inside of it that it would be difficult to not take advantage of that, from drawing to text overlay to filters and all sorts of things. There's just a lot in there that you can use to really tell a great story. Then having a variety of content. Don't just be, hit the same note over and over again. But finally, and I feel like this is my biggest one, is don't be afraid to test things. Just get out there and try it. It'll help you to be more creative and think of more ideas. And if you fail, it's gone in 24 hours and nobody's going to remember it. And
I actually say, I always want to fail like that. I always tell my failures to be over in 24 hours.
Well, and luckily you can delete it before the 24 hours if you feel like it's a major failure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we like to say fail fast.
Yeah, exactly. That is key for Snapchat if you happen to do so.
Yes, awesome. Well, Jill, really appreciate you joining us today. I'm excited that we got to talk about this topic. I know I've learned more than I knew before we even started, and I love that. And hopefully those who joined us today learned something as well. So, hey, everybody, feel free to join us again next week, every week at Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time. We jump on, and sometimes we post topics like a week before, and sometimes it was like today. I think I posted it this morning. So
I think it was a few hours.
We get people a few hours to, find out what we're talking about today. As always too, we will put a blog post up at room214.com/blog. And we do have a little bit of a presentation that Jill put together as well, and we'll embed that on the blog. So hopefully that'll be useful for you guys. I'm going to pause the recording, and if anybody else wants to stick around and ask more questions, we'll have a few minutes for that as well. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.